The rodeo dream. Dusty Rivers whistled a jaunty tune as he cinched the saddle tight on Old Bess. The leather creaked a familiar song beneath his touch, a comforting sound that always stilled the butterflies fluttering in his gut before a big ride. Today wasn't a rodeo, not yet, but it was the start of it. Today he found his horse. He patted Bess's flank. "You're a good girl, Bess. A steady girl. But this rodeo needs more than steady, don't it? It needs fire. It needs lightning." Dusty had been scouring the county for months, reading every advertisement, talking to every horse trader, listening to every whisper on the wind. The rodeo in Cheyenne was the biggest one in the West, a chance to make a name for himself, a chance to finally step out of his father's shadow. He wasn't chasing fame, not really. He was chasing that feeling, that pure, unadulterated thrill of man and beast working as one, a symphony of muscle and instinct. He pictured his father, a weathered face etched with the wisdom of the land. His father had never pushed him towards a rodeo, but he'd never discouraged him either. "Just remember, Dusty," he could almost hear his father say, the words raspy with age. "A man's worth ain't measured in trophies or prize money. It's measured in the lives he touches, the burdens he lightens. Always lend a hand, son. Always." Dusty adjusted the brim of his hat, a well-worn Stetson that had seen better days. His father's words echoed in his mind, a constant reminder that there was more to life than chasing dreams. He tried to live by those words, helping neighbors with their cattle, mending fences for widows, even just lending an ear to someone who needed to talk. It wasn't always easy, especially when the rodeo was calling, but he knew his father was right. He swung into the saddle, the familiar weight grounding him. He'd packed light, a bedroll, a few cans of beans, some dry jerky, and a canteen full of water. Enough to get him through a few days on the road. The ad he'd seen in the local paper spoke of a small, dilapidated farm just outside of Harmony Creek. The owner, a man named Jebediah, was selling off his stock, said he was too old to keep up the place. Among the horses listed was a 5-year-old buckskin mare with untapped potential. Dusty had a good feeling about this one. The sun was already high in the sky, promising another scorcher. Dusty nudged Bess forward, and they started down the dusty track that led away from the ranch. The landscape unfolded around him, a tapestry of rolling hills, scrub brush, and the occasional lone cottonwood tree offering a sliver of shade. The air was thick with the scent of sage and dry earth. As he rode, his mind drifted back to the rodeo. He imagined the roar of the crowd, the pounding hooves, the adrenaline surging through his veins. He'd practiced tirelessly, honing his skills, pushing himself to the limit. He knew he had the talent, the grit, the determination. All he needed was the right horse. He pictured the buckskin mare, wild and untamed. He imagined her power, her grace, her spirit. He'd seen pictures, but pictures never told the whole story. He needed to feel her beneath him, to sense her energy, to see if they were a match. The closer he got to Harmony Creek, the more run-down the landscape seemed to become. Fences sagged, fields were overgrown with weeds, and the houses looked abandoned and forgotten. Dusty frowned. This wasn't what he'd expected. Finally, he spotted it in the distance, Jebediah's farm, or what was left of it. The house was a crumbling shack. The barn was leaning precariously to one side, and the corral looked like it hadn't been used in years. A heavy silence hung in the air, broken only by the occasional creak of the wind. Dusty reined in Bess, a knot forming in his stomach. Something felt wrong, terribly wrong. He dismounted, looping Bess's reins around a gnarled post. He approached the gate cautiously, his hand resting on the butt of his Colt Peacemaker. The gate creaked open with a rusty groan, revealing a scene that made his blood run cold. There, chained to the far side of the corral fence, weren't horses, but 3 children, their faces gaunt, their clothes ragged, their eyes wide with fear. Chains of despair. The trail to Harmony Creek was a mere ghost of a path, swallowed by the arid landscape. Bristly mesquite and stubborn scrub oak snagged at Dusty's gaiters as he pressed his mount onward. The air, thick with the aroma of sun-scorched earth and desiccated grasses, felt stagnant and stifling. He'd anticipated some token of habitation. A hound's bark carried on the breeze, smoke rising from a hearth, anything. But only a profound quiet reigned, a silence so absolute it seemed to hum against his skull. At last, the dilapidated farmhouse materialized from the shimmering heat. Flaking paint peeled from the clapboard like a reptile shedding its skin, and the porch slumped like a weary old man. The windows were dark, empty sockets staring out at the barren vista. A rusted rooster weather vane groaned on its axis, a lonely lament carried on the slight breeze. No smoke, no dog, no sign of the fabled lightning horse. Dusty dismounted, the saddle leather groaning under his weight. He secured the reins to a crumbling post and hailed the still air. "Hello? Anybody here?" Silence answered. He tried again, amplifying his voice. "Mr. Thompson? I'm looking for Mr. Thompson." Only the dry rustle of the wind whispered back. A disquieting chill crept along Dusty's spine. He hadn't anticipated a boisterous welcome, but this felt distinctly wrong. He edged closer to the house, his hand instinctively finding the reassuring weight of his pistol's grip. Not expecting a fight, just alert. Circling the structure, his boots crunched on the parched, fractured ground. He noticed the back of the property gave way to a small, neglected corral. And there they were, 3 children. They huddled together by the far rail fence, clothes tattered and stained with grime. The youngest, a wisp of a girl with tangled blonde hair, clung to the leg of an older girl, who in turn embraced a young boy. Their faces were gaunt, their eyes pools of stark fear. But it wasn't their appearance that rooted Dusty to the spot. It was the restraints. Heavy iron chains. Each child was fettered to the fence, the cold metal biting into their delicate wrists and ankles. Thick padlocks secured the chains, their surfaces reflecting the afternoon sun with a dull gleam. Dusty's breath hitched. A wave of fury crashed over him, burning and immediate. He vaulted the fence, landing hard. The children recoiled, huddling tighter against the wood as if braced for a strike. The elder girl, face streaked with dirt, moved slightly forward, shielding the others with her slight form. Her eyes, the gray of a tempestuous sky, narrowed as she scrutinized him. "Go away," she managed, her voice a raw croak. "Leave us be." Dusty raised his hands, palms outward, projecting calm. "I'm not going to hurt you. I am Dusty. What's your name?" The girl remained mute, her gaze unwavering. The 2 younger ones stayed silent, their eyes flickering nervously between Dusty and their protector. He lowered himself to one knee, slowly, deliberately, keeping his hands in plain sight. "I came to see Mr. Thompson about a horse. But I don't understand. Why are you chained like this?" Her expression hardened, taking on a guarded edge. "He says we're wicked, that we wander, that we must learn obedience." "What's your name?" Dusty repeated gently, ignoring the tightening in his gut. After a prolonged hesitation, she offered, "Lily May." "And are these your siblings?" Lily May gave a small nod, her eyes darting to the 2 younger children. "Tom," she indicated the boy who looked around 8. "And Daisy." Dusty's heart softened as he looked at Daisy, the little girl gripping Lily May's leg. She could hardly be 4 years old. "Lily May, those chains are hurting you. I want to help you get loose." A tremor of fear ran through Lily May's eyes, but beneath it, Dusty saw a glint of hope ignite. "He'll return," she breathed, her voice shaking. "He'll be cross. Then we must leave before he gets back," Dusty countered, his voice hushed and urgent. "Do you know the location of the keys?" Whispers of a cruel master. The rusted shackles gave way with a series of grating clicks as Dusty manipulated the lock. Lily May winced with each sound, her eyes riveted to his movements. Tom and Daisy, clinging to each other behind her, were pale specters smudged with grime. "Steady," Dusty soothed, his voice a low rumble. "Almost there." The final loop parted. He cast the weighty chain aside. For a heartbeat, Lily May stood motionless, as if questioning reality. Then, tentatively, she touched the abraded skin of her wrist where the iron had bitten. A ghost of a smile flickered, quickly extinguished by renewed dread. "He'll be back," she breathed, her voice a fragile thread. Silas will be back, and he'll be furious. Silas, Dusty echoed, his brow creasing. That's Thompson's given name? Lily May nodded, her gaze flickering anxiously toward the looming farmhouse. Silas Thompson. He lords over this place. Over us, too. Dusty knelt, a reassuring hand resting on Lily May's shoulder. He doesn't own you. Not anymore. Tell me everything. Hesitantly, Lily May began, her voice a shaky whisper that gradually grew firmer as she recounted their history. Silas had offered sanctuary after their parents' passing, promising shelter and a future. That promise had quickly curdled. The house became their prison, the fields their pen. They toiled from sunrise to sunset, nurturing the paltry crops and tending the few emaciated animals. He called us wicked. Tom interjected, his voice reedy. Said we were born tainted. Said we needed punishment. Daisy chimed in, her eyes glistening. Lily May continued, her voice flat, devoid of inflection. He barely fed us. Scraps, mostly, and what we could forage. And when our work wasn't good enough, or when he simply lost his temper, he'd shackle us. Sometimes for days on end. She displayed the wheals on her arms and legs, a roadmap of scars etching her skin. Tom and Daisy followed, their small bodies testament to Silas's brutality. Dusty's stomach clenched with each revelation. Thompson's earlier placid demeanor now struck him as a carefully crafted facade, concealing the monster within. He made me draw, Lily May murmured, retrieving a crumpled scrap of paper from the dirt. It depicted a horse in charcoal, the lines surprisingly elegant despite the humble materials. He called it a waste, but I loved it. Dusty accepted the drawing, his fingers grazing hers. It's beautiful, Lily May. You possess a rare talent. He rose, his anger solidifying into a steely resolve. He regarded the children, their faces mirrors of fear and weariness. I'm getting you out of here. That I swear. You won't endure this any longer. Lily May met Dusty's gaze, a fragile hope battling deep-seated skepticism. Where would we even go? Anywhere away from this hellhole, Dusty declared. There are people who will cherish you, who will treat you with respect. I'll guarantee it. His gaze swept toward the farmhouse, a somber silhouette against the dying sun. But first, we need to find you sanctuary, a place where Silas can't reach you. Dusty surveyed the terrain, alert for any sign of Silas's approach. The wind sighed through the parched grass, carrying the acrid tang of dust and decay. A hawk wheeled above, its piercing cry reverberating across the desolate expanse. We can't linger, Dusty urged, his voice laced with urgency. We must leave. Now. A glimmer of hope. Golden shafts pierced the grimy windows, waking the shack. Dusty, already restless, listened to the children's soft snores as they huddled together for warmth. Sleep had been a battlefield, the weight of responsibility a lead apron. Harmony Creek, the glimmer of a champion rodeo mount, felt like a faded dream. He rose, careful to sidestep Tom and Daisy. Lily May was awake, her eyes holding a fragile alertness behind the lingering shadows of fear. Cross-legged, she clutched a charcoal drawing, a surprisingly adept rendering of a horse on a scrap of worn paper. Morning, Dusty murmured, his voice a dry rasp. Lily May nodded, her fingers tightening on the drawing. He's coming back, right? Dusty knelt beside her. That's what I overheard last night. Silas is expected late tonight. A flicker of dread crossed her face, and Tom whimpered in his sleep. Which doesn't give us much daylight, Dusty said, his gaze taking in the threadbare room. We need to vanish before he arrives. Lily May swallowed, her small throat working. Where will we go? I don't know precisely, Dusty admitted, but anywhere has to be better than this. He stood and stretched his aching muscles. First, we gather what's yours. What things? Lily May asked, confused. Dusty gestured around the sparse interior. Anything that belongs to you. Anything you want to carry. Their belongings proved pitifully few. A ragged doll with a missing button eye for Daisy. A chipped soldier Tom wouldn't release. And for Lily May, her drawings, bound together with twine, and a painted toy horse, its once vibrant hues dulled by grime and age. A trinket from some long-ago fair, clutched as if it were a priceless artifact. Watching them gather these scant possessions, a wave of despair threatened to engulf Dusty. They owned so little, their childhood stolen by Silas Thompson's cruelty. He clenched his fists, the familiar anger simmering just beneath the surface. "All right," he said, forcing a cheerful tone, "let's pack these treasures." He unearthed a flour sack and tenderly placed the children's items inside. Lily May watched him, suspicion still clinging to her like dust. "You won't leave us, will you?" The question, so raw, so vulnerable, struck Dusty like a physical blow. He met her unwavering gaze, seeing the quiet strength in her small face, and knew abandoning them was unthinkable. Not now. Not ever. Kneeling, he locked eyes with her. "I promise, Lily May, I'm not going anywhere without you, Tom and Daisy. I'm going to keep you safe." The tension seemed to leach from her small frame. Dusty stood. "Now, I need to figure out how to get us out of here, and I'm going to need your help." He laid out his original plan to ride to Harmony Creek, hoping to buy a good horse and resurrect his rodeo career. He watched her carefully, gauging her reaction. "But that's secondary now," Dusty stated firmly. "Your safety is paramount. That can wait." Lily May nodded slowly. "Help with what?" "Think," Dusty prompted. "Is there anyone you know, anyone who might be willing to hide us? Someone who wouldn't run to Silas?" She worried her lip, her brow furrowed. "Old Maggie," she whispered finally, almost afraid to speak the name. "She lives in the woods, past the south field. She brings us scraps sometimes when Silas is occupied." "Old Maggie," Dusty repeated, storing the name. "You think she might help us?" Lily May shrugged. "I don't know. She's peculiar, but she's gentle." Dusty nodded. "All right, Old Maggie it is. But first," he added, glancing at the mounting sun, "we need to eat something. Let's see what passes for food around here." He rummaged through the meager supplies Silas had left behind, a half-empty flour sack, some petrified bread, and a handful of wrinkled apples. It was a pittance, but they'd have to make do. As Dusty prepared a sparse meal, Lily May remained steadfastly clutching the toy horse. It was more than just a plaything. It represented a life before Silas's shadow, a life untouched by fear. It was a spark of hope in the deepening gloom, and Dusty vowed, seeing the fierce devotion in her gaze, to fan that spark into a flame. The unexpected return. Dusty nudged Belle onward, the rhythm of her gait a calming counterpoint to the gnawing anxiety in his gut. He needed to reach Harmony Creek, find a decent horse, and be back before dark. Silas's return was an unknown quantity, a dark storm cloud gathering on the horizon. He glanced back at the wagon, Lily May's small face peering out from beneath the canvas. He offered a reassuring nod, though his own reassurance felt thin. The air hung thick and heavy, promising a downpour. The scent of damp earth rose from the fields, mingling with the sweet fragrance of wildflowers blooming in the ditches. Buster, usually a picture of lazy contentment, trotted alongside the wagon, his tail tucked low. Dusty was halfway to Harmony Creek when a change in Buster's demeanor snagged his attention. The dog stopped abruptly, his ears perked, a low growl rumbling in his chest. He whined, a high-pitched, anxious sound that set Dusty's teeth on edge. "What is it, boy?" Dusty reined Belle to a halt, his hand instinctively moving to the rifle strapped to the saddle. Buster ignored him, his gaze fixed on a road behind them. The growl intensified, escalating into a frenzy of barking. It wasn't his usual playful bark. This was a warning, primal and urgent. Lily May scrambled out of the wagon, Tom and Daisy clinging to her skirts. Her eyes, wide and filled with a familiar fear, scanned the horizon. "What's wrong, Dusty?" Before Dusty could answer, the distant rumble of an engine broke the silence. It grew louder, closer, an invasive mechanical growl that shattered the tranquility of the countryside. Dusty swore under his breath. It was Silas's truck. Too soon. Much too soon. He vaulted off Belle, his boots hitting the ground with a thud. "Get back in the wagon," he ordered, his voice low and urgent. Now! Lily didn't argue. She herded Tom and Daisy back into the wagon, her small hands trembling as she pulled the canvas flap closed. Dusty grabbed the reins of Belle and the wagon, positioning himself between them and the approaching vehicle. The truck screeched to a halt, kicking up a cloud of dust that momentarily obscured the scene. When the dust settled, Silas stood there, leaning against the hood, his face a mask of cold fury. Well, Silas drawled, his voice dripping with menace. Look what we have here. Running away, are we? He pushed himself off the truck, his eyes fixed on Dusty. He was holding something behind his back, concealed from view. Dusty's heart hammered against his ribs. He stood his ground, his gaze unwavering. We're just passing through, Silas. Silas chuckled, a harsh, grating sound. Passing through, huh? With my children? He stepped forward, revealing the object he'd been hiding. It was a whip, its leather strands thick and menacing. He cracked it once, the sound echoing through the air like a gunshot. Buster whimpered and retreated behind the wagon. Those children belong with me, Silas spat, his eyes narrowed. They're my responsibility. Responsibility? Dusty scoffed, his voice laced with contempt. Is that what you call it? Silas's face flushed crimson. You stay out of this, Rivers. This is family business. He took another step closer, the whip snaking through the air. Lily Mae peeked through a gap in the canvas, her eyes wide with terror. Tom began to cry, burying his face in Daisy's hair. I'm making it my business, Silas, Dusty said, his voice hard. You're not going anywhere near those kids. Silas laughed again, a cruel, mocking sound. You in what army? He raised the whip, his eyes gleaming with malicious intent. You think you can stop me? Dusty knew he was outmatched. Silas was bigger, stronger, and armed with a weapon. But he couldn't back down. He couldn't let Silas get to the children. He took a deep breath, his hand tightening around the reins. I'll do whatever it takes, Dusty said, his voice unwavering. I promise you that. The air crackled with tension. The storm clouds overhead mirrored the storm brewing between them. Silas took another step, the whip raised high. The confrontation was inevitable. Defiance and escape. The whip's sharp crack sliced through the air, an ugly sound that made Lily Mae wince. Dusty interposed himself, a human shield between Silas and the children. The leather's bite scored his shoulder, ripping through the fabric of his shirt. He bit back a cry, jaw tight. Behind me, he rumbled, his voice a low warning. A knot of fear twisted in Lily Mae's gut, yet she obeyed, drawing Thomas and the twins into her orbit. She wouldn't allow Silas to inflict any more pain, not if she could prevent it. Her gaze darted around, seeking a lifeline, a path to escape. Silas stalked forward, his features twisted into a mask of fury. Think you can stop me, boy? Those kids belong to me. They're not possessions, Silas. They're human beings. Dusty's words were clipped, his hand edging towards the knife at his belt. He'd hoped to avoid bloodshed, but he'd sooner die than let Silas lay another hand on them. The whip lashed out again. This time, Dusty intercepted it with his forearm, the braided leather wrapping around his flesh. A searing pain shot up his arm, but he stood firm. He sensed the children trembling behind him, their fear a palpable thing. He couldn't afford to break. Abruptly, a tawny missile launched itself at Silas. Buster, who had been silently observing, had reached his limit. Teeth clamped onto Silas's leg, a guttural growl vibrating in the dog's chest. Silas bellowed, the whip falling from his grasp as he hopped backward, clutching his bleeding calf. Get off, you cur! He lashed out with a kick, but Buster was too agile, evading the blow and snapping again. Now! Dusty roared, seizing the advantage. Run! To the truck! Lily Mae didn't hesitate. Snatching Thomas's hand, she propelled the twins forward, their little legs a blur of motion. Relief washed over Dusty as he watched them go, but he knew the reprieve was temporary. He had to buy them time. He surged forward, grabbing the discarded whip. With a practiced flick, he sent the leather spiraling around Silas's arm, wrenching him off balance. Silas stumbled, a string of curses escaping his lips, and Dusty followed up, disarming him with a sharp kick to the wrist. The knife skittered across the dirt. "You've made a grave error, boy," Silas hissed, his eyes blazing with malice. "You should have stayed out of this." "Maybe," Dusty countered, his voice devoid of warmth. "But I couldn't." Silas lunged, but Dusty sidestepped, sending him sprawling into the dirt. He had no desire to inflict serious harm, only to shield the children. He glanced towards the truck. They were nearly there. Then Silas did the unexpected. Instead of renewing the attack, he scrambled to his feet and sprinted towards the looming barn, vanishing into its cavernous depths. "Where do you think you're going?" Dusty took a step to follow, but then Silas's voice echoed from the darkness, laced with venom. "This isn't finished, Rivers. You hear me? It's far from over. You'll rue the day you crossed Silas Thorne." A prickle of unease raced down Dusty's spine. He knew Silas's threat was not idle. He looked back towards the truck. Lily Mae was already at the wheel, Thomas buckled in beside her. The twins were huddled together in the back, their faces ashen. He made his choice. He couldn't risk Silas pursuing them now. "Buster Heel," he called out. The dog, still guarding Silas's dropped knife, obeyed instantly, trotting to Dusty's side. Dusty pivoted and bolted, sprinting for the truck. He leaped inside, slamming the door. "Go, Lily Mae, go." No further prompting was needed. She jammed the truck into gear and floored the accelerator. The tires churned, spitting gravel as they surged forward, leaving the farm and Silas Thorne behind. For the moment, as they hurtled down the dirt road, Dusty glanced back at the barn. He could almost feel the weight of Silas's malevolent gaze boring into him. He recognized this as merely the opening act. They were temporarily safe, but true security remained elusive. He had to reach Harmony Creek. He had to devise a plan to protect them. He had to ensure Silas Thorne could never inflict harm upon them again. The perils of the journey. The old truck rattled and groaned, protesting every bump in the dirt track as Dusty wrestled with the steering wheel. Rain from the previous night had swollen the creek beds, turning normally docile streams into churning brown rapids. He had to get them across the Rio Grande before Silas caught up. Lily Mae sat beside him, her small face pressed against the window. Her charcoal sketch of Buster, the brave dog who'd bought them time, lay crumpled in her lap. The younger children, huddled in the back, were quieter than he'd ever known them to be, exhaustion and fear clinging to them like a second skin. The first crossing was a shallow tributary, but the second, the Rio Grande itself, was a beast unleashed. The water surged, thick with mud and debris, tearing at the banks. Dusty stopped the truck a good distance away, the engine idling roughly. "All right, everyone out," he said, his voice deliberately calm. "We're going to walk across." Lily Mae's eyes widened. "Walk? But it's too strong." "We'll hold on to each other," Dusty reassured her. "I'll go first, then you and the kids. We'll make a chain." He tested the water with his boot. It was icy cold and pulled hard. "Lily Mae, you hold on to Sarah and Thomas, okay? Real tight." He waded in, the water rising quickly to his knees, then his thighs. The current buffeted him, trying to sweep him off his feet. He dug his boots into the muddy bottom, using all his strength to maintain his footing. He reached the other side, breathless and soaked, and turned back to the bank. Lily Mae stood frozen, her face pale. Sarah and Thomas clung to her legs, whimpering. "You can do it," Dusty called out, his voice strained against the roar of the river. "Just one step at a time. I'm right here." He watched, his heart pounding, as Lily Mae, her face a mask of determination, led the children into the water. They stumbled and gasped, the cold water stealing their breath. Dusty reached out, grabbing Sarah and pulling her to safety. Lily Mae followed, dragging Thomas behind her. He caught Thomas, lifting the boy into his arms. Lily Mae shivered violently, teeth chattering. "Good job," Dusty said, wrapping his arms around her. "You were so brave." They huddled together, dripping and exhausted, until the worst of the shivering passed. Then they piled back into the truck, leaving wet footprints on the worn seats. The forest came next, a dense, ancient stand of pines where the sun barely pierced the canopy. Shadows danced like specters, and every rustle of leaves sounded like approaching footsteps. The children were already on edge, and the oppressive darkness amplified their fear. Thomas started to cry, burying his face in Lily May's side. "I don't like it here," he sobbed. "It's scary." "Me neither," Sarah whispered, clutching Lily May's hand. Dusty stopped the truck. He needed to do something, anything, to break the tension. He rummaged in the back and pulled out a tattered blanket. "Okay, everyone," he said, spreading the blanket on the damp forest floor. "Story time." He racked his brain, searching for a story that would distract them, that would offer a glimmer of hope in the encroaching darkness. He began to tell them about Harmony Creek, the little town where he lived, painting a picture of sun-drenched meadows and friendly faces, of a place where they could be safe and happy. He told them about the wild mustangs that roamed the hills, their manes flowing in the wind, free as the air. Lily May, who had been watching him with wary eyes, seemed to relax slightly. She even offered a small, hesitant smile when he described Buster chasing squirrels through the town square. As he spoke, Dusty realized he wasn't just telling them a story, he was making a promise. He was promising them a future, a life beyond the chains and the fear. A life where they could run free, like those wild mustangs under a wide, open sky. He needed to get them there. He would get them there. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows. It was time to move on. The forest held its breath as Dusty started the truck and steered it deeper into the darkness. Their journey far from over, but their spirits, for now, a little lighter. Sanctuary at the ranch. A tentative dawn painted the eastern sky as they topped the final rise. Below, nestled within a cradle of cottonwoods and gnarled scrub oak, lay Dusty's sanctuary. A plume of smoke ascended from the stone dwelling's chimney, a silent promise of succor and, crucially, sustenance. Lily May, gripping Dusty's shoulders, her gaze a delicate blend of yearning and unease, held tight. "Almost home, darlin'," Dusty rumbled, his voice gravelly with weariness. He nudged Bess, the borrowed mare, down the incline. In the wagon's shadowed recesses, the younger children stirred, their faces wan and pinched. As they neared the house, a woman stepped out, tall and stalwart. Her features bore the imprint of seasoned experience. Clara, Dusty had called her. Behind her, a small group of men stood, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Dusty, you made it," Clara exclaimed, relief coloring her tone. Her eyes swept over the wagon's occupants, lingering on the children's pallid faces. Comprehension bloomed within her gaze. "Welcome to Rivers Ranch," she announced, her voice imbued with warmth and welcome. The men advanced, their movements careful as they assisted the children from the wagon. Shy smiles, hesitant yet genuine, flickered across their faces. Lily May burrowed into Dusty, her small frame trembling. "It's all right, Lily May," Dusty reassured, kneeling. "These are good people. They'll look after us." Clara ushered them inside. The air within resonated with the comforting sense of wood smoke and simmering stew. A long table, adorned with mismatched tableware, awaited. The children hesitated, uncertain. "Come now, dears," Clara coaxed, guiding them toward the table. "Let's get some nourishment into you." They ate in quiet absorption, their eyes flitting around the room. The fire's soothing embrace and the solace of full stomachs seemed to loosen their tightly wound anxieties. Lily May, however, remained vigilant, her gaze tethered to the entrance. Following the meal, Clara led them to a room furnished with cots, each draped with a thick, inviting quilt. The children stared at the beds, their faces mirroring incredulity. Actual beds, a far cry from the meager straw pallets they knew. "You all rest now," Clara soothed, her hand gently resting on Lily May's shoulder. "You're safe now." Lily May offered no response, but neither did she recoil. As sleep claimed the others, she remained by the window, sketching with a charcoal shard salvaged from the fire pit. She captured the ranch house, the trees, the distant mountains etched against the night. She drew Dusty, his face a study in strength and kindness. Dusty found her hours later. The other children slumbered peacefully, their expression serene. He settled beside her, observing her work. "That's beautiful, Lily May," he murmured. She shrugged, avoiding his gaze. "You don't trust me, do you?" he inquired. She shook her head, her voice barely audible. "Not yet," she admitted. Dusty acknowledged her hesitation. Trust was a currency earned, not freely given. He rose. "Get some sleep," he urged. "We'll talk in the morning." He left her there, the soft rasp of charcoal her only companion. Stepping outside, the night air prickled his skin. He felt an undercurrent of tension, a foreboding of impending darkness. His instincts proved true. Just shy of dawn, a horse's whinny sliced through the stillness. Dusty, who had been napping on the porch, snapped awake. He recognized the distinctive call of Silas's stallion. Reacting swiftly, he roused Clara and the ranch hands. "He's here," he stated grimly. "Get the children to the cellar. Now." The ranch hands, armed with rifles, secured positions around the house. Clara, her face ashen but resolved, shepherded the children into the cellar. Lily May, her eyes wide with stark terror, clutched Dusty's hand. "It's going to be all right," he reassured, squeezing her hand. "I promise." He led her to the cellar door, then faced the approaching figure. Silas materialized from the shadows, his face a mask of fury. "Rivers," he roared. "I know they're here. Hand them over." Dusty stood firm, his eyes glacial. "They're not yours to take," he declared. "They're mine," Silas thundered, his hand gripping his pistol. "They owe me. They owe you nothing," Dusty countered, his voice a low growl. "You're a monster, Silas, and I won't let you hurt them anymore." Silas's laugh was a harsh, grating sound. "You think you can stop me, Rivers? You're just one man." "Maybe," Dusty conceded, his gaze unflinching. "But I'm standing between you and those children, and I'm not moving an inch." Justice and kindness. The air crackled with a tension thicker than the gathering storm clouds on the horizon. Silas stood his ground, but the united front of Rivers' ranch was a wall he couldn't breach. Clara, usually a picture of gentle hospitality, stood beside Dusty, her eyes blazing with a righteous fury that silenced the usual chatter of the ranch hands. Even old Jebediah, whose bones creaked louder than a rusty wagon wheel, held a shotgun with surprising steadiness. "You ain't taking him nowhere, Silas," Dusty said, his voice low and gravelly. "Not while I'm breathing." Lily May, clutching her youngest brother, peeked from behind Dusty's legs. The fear in her eyes warred with a flicker of hope. She saw the unwavering determination etched on Dusty's face, and something shifted within her. Maybe, just maybe, they were finally safe. The standoff lasted what felt like an eternity. The only sounds were the restless shifting of horses, the wind whispering through the cottonwoods, and Silas's ragged breathing. Finally, Sheriff Brody arrived, his cruiser kicking up dust as it screeched to a halt. He stepped out, his face grim. "Silas Thompson," he said, his voice resonating with authority. "You're under arrest for child endangerment, abuse, and a whole heap of other charges I ain't got time to list right now." Silas sputtered, trying to argue, but the sheriff wasn't having any of it. He was quickly disarmed and handcuffed, his protests fading into pathetic whimpers as he was shoved into the back of the cruiser. As the vehicle sped away, a collective sigh of relief swept through the ranch. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Social services arrived, gently interviewing the children, ensuring their safety and well-being. Doctors examined them, tending to their physical wounds and offering a promise of healing. The community of Harmony Creek, learning of the children's plight, rallied with an outpouring of support. Food, clothing, and toys arrived in abundance. Clara, with her nurturing heart, coordinated the efforts, ensuring each child felt loved and cared for. Lily May, initially hesitant, slowly began to open up. She spent hours drawing with charcoal on scraps of paper, her artistic talent blossoming under Clara's encouragement. Dusty found her one afternoon sketching a picture of a horse, its mane flowing in the wind. "That's a fine horse, Lily May," he said, squatting beside her. She looked up, her eyes wide. It's like yours, Dusty, the one you rode on. He's a good horse, Dusty agreed, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Maybe one day, you can learn to ride him. A faint smile touched her lips. Maybe, she whispered. As the weeks passed, Rivers Ranch transformed into a haven for the children. The sounds of laughter replaced the silence of fear. The aroma of baking bread replaced the stench of neglect. Dusty watched, a sense of profound satisfaction washing over him. He saw the children playing in the fields, their faces radiant with joy, and he knew he had made the right choice. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Dusty sat on the porch, watching Lily Mae and her siblings playing tag with the ranch dogs. Clara joined him, settling into the rocking chair beside him. "They're happy, Dusty," she said softly. "You've given them a home." Dusty nodded, his gaze fixed on the children. "I didn't do it alone, Clara. You and everyone else here. You all helped." "You started it, Dusty," Clara insisted. "You had the courage to stand up for them when no one else would." Dusty looked out to the horizon, remembering his past ambitions. I was going to head over to Harmony Creek today to find myself a horse for the rodeo." Clara chuckled. "That's so? And what happened?" "Well, I'm still here, ain't I?" Dusty replied with a grin. He thought of the prize money, the fame, the fleeting glory of the rodeo circuit. It all seemed insignificant now. He realized that the true rewards in life weren't found in winning competitions or achieving personal ambitions, but in helping others, in making a difference in the lives of those who needed it most. Dusty turned to Clara, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I came here to buy a horse," he said, "but I found something much more important.